I just kicked the table.
Jack just kicked the table.
That's awesome.
Medic, hello. My name is Steve Peterson.
And I'm Jack Hinkle.
We're here at Concord High School recording Chops Podcast, where you can follow us on Chops_podcast at Instagram, TikTok, and Chops Podcast for YouTube. And you can follow us on Chops on Spotify Podcast and Chops Apple Podcast.
We're everywhere, man.
That we are going everywhere. So, Jack, how you doing?
Oh, we're
Checking
doing
in
all
here.
right. I am. Coffee's running low, but got it right here.
Now, are you drinking? You carry your thermos with you in the day. Like before you leave the house, you have 2 cups, 1 cup.
1 cup. I brew 2. 1 there. Pour 1 into the Yeti. Take it with me.
Do you drink your coffee at home or on the way to school?
I drink my coffee. I have 1 cup at home, and then I drink the 2nd cup in the Yeti after lunch. I can't have it all in the morning, or else I am like a hot mess.
Whoa!
But you do 2 in the morning, right?
I do 2 large. Like I make 6 quote cups.
Okay, 6 cups, which is
So
like
what do you make?
really like 2.
What
I
do you
do
make?
like 5.
Okay, so I make 6.
Okay.
Which is 2. Like the mugs here are these Chops mugs. Those
like
are
2
small,
and a half,
right?
right? 2.
So
yeah.
the ones that I use are more like super size. So I have like
So you have 2 big mugs.
2 big mugs before I go to school.
And then at school, you make one in the Keurig at lunch,
At
right?
lunch.
Okay, so you're riding on 3.
Yes.
Is that it? No more after that?
I can't do that. Now, during marching band, if we have to be here till 9 or 10.
Oh, you do a 4th cup?
Or I'll be more liberal with the caffeine. Like
Okay.
if we go out to Wings or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Or
You get your diet due.
right,
Yeah,
do
yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Or get a cup of coffee if I'm driving out in the countryside decompressing. I will
Ooh.
get a cup of coffee because if I have it at like 4:30 or 5, it's not going to affect me at 10:30.
Right.
But now, like on a regular day with no after-school activity where I need a little extra push,
You're
I
good
don't,
with
I don't
3.
do that.
Okay. I used to do 3. I used to do like 1 before breakfast, then 1 with breakfast, and then 1 with lunch. That was like in college days. And then I kind of slowed down, and I don't think more than 2 is good for me.
You feel it.
I feel it. I get all shaky, and I don't feel like centered or focused.
Yeah.
But like by the time like 8 a.m. hits and I have 1 cup in me, I'm like, I'm good.
Right.
That's it. Now, some of my listeners, our listeners, I should say, may know that I have like a little coffee habit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like to do on my days where I don't have school.
Mhm.
One of the things that really brings me joy is brewing a Chemex cup of coffee. I grind my beans. I have my little pour over system, and I kettle warm it up, and I slowly just pour it over the beans, and I just watch the coffee drip, and it's so slow. But Steve, by the end of those 5 to 7 minutes, that is like the best coffee. It is so much better than anything you can buy.
Now, what kind of beans, like what kind of roast do you
Okay,
like?
this is really tragic because right now I'm getting Amazon Prime beans, and they're like the cheapest thing. But
It's like Amazon Prime.
they just sell like Amazon beans. It's
Okay.
it's like super cheap, but it's fine. The beans I really like is a local place called Embassy Coffee in Goshen. They have really good coffee beans.
Yeah.
But that's my jam. I also made a video of this over COVID that I hid in my assignments as an Easter egg, waiting for students to find it.
Kids find it?
No. I told them about it later. They're like, oh, that's what that little link was? Yeah, okay, cool. So that's like one of my jams that like I really like to
Okay.
do when I like have a day or have some time.
So then if it is a school day, then how do you brew your coffee?
I do
the
the
drip?
program drip
Yeah.
6:05 a.m.
But that's a little happiness when you come downstairs and your coffee's all ready.
No, okay, here's the thing. I think I've like Pavlovian response to myself.
Okay.
When I smell coffee coming on the way downstairs, I have to go to work. That's like my thought. Isn't that's kind of wild? But you're right that the smell of coffee,
Yeah.
it is kind of nice.
No, that is good. And to have it all ready for you.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't take long to make coffee. It's like, a minute. But, I mean, to, prepare it.
Right, but then
it
it's
is a nice
all
little-
ready. You
yeah,
just pour
it
and
is
you're good.
nice.
But
The
part
next-
of the pour over thing is like the ritual of it, just like kind of going through the
hey.
motions. So that's something that like kind of brings
That's
me
good,
some
Jack.
joy.
Jack's got the ritual.
I have the ritual with the coffee. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good. My coffee pot has been like
It's
I-
seen some things.
it has seen some things and it's fallen out of the back of the van and there's like a crack on the top of it and it's
You got
yeah.
Black and Decker. What do you got?
it's a Cuisinart
Cuisinart. Okay.
and Yeah. Family vacation one time. It rolled out of the back of the Odyssey and it was like ka-tink, and I was like, oh, but it's
Hey,
fine.
but now it's got a story. It's got some
It's got
character.
a story, and it's been with me. It's my buddy. We're friends. I'm the only
No, that's
like the
good.
boys aren't at home. They're not drinking coffee, and my wife does not drink coffee.
Oh, you're the only one?
No,
Oliver?
Oliver,
Oliver drinking coffee
Oliver
would do
would
some
be.
damage.
He'd
You wouldn't have
he
a
would
couch
hurt
anymore.
himself. I don't
Yeah.
think we'd have a house. He'd like gnaw at the windows.
Those
Okay,
termites?
well,
No.
speaking
Wait, yeah.
of home,
Why are we talking? Yeah, why are we talking about coffee?
well, I was just kind of curious, but okay, we should do a breakfast show someday. and talk about our breakfast.
I would tear
right?
that up.
Okay. We did have an audience member, a listener, that was
Shout out Chop Station.
complimentary of our show. Thank you. And was interested in us sharing or talking about school life versus personal life. School life, home life, school life, family life, right?
Sure.
And living in those two lanes. And so I think we're going to open that up. It was a would you be interested in talking about that, or how do you guys do that?
And that is something that I know a lot of teachers talk about, because that was definitely like a hot topic the last few years, but that's something I would imagine anyone can relate to in any profession.
Any profession.
And obviously this will look different from me and Steve,
Yes, it will.
because Steve has a family of 4.
Yep.
and you're
A
hanging
family
out
of
with.
4 and a dog.
So what does this look like? Like, I know you've talked a lot about like settling your snow globe, because every teacher, I'm guessing most people in any profession, when you are on your drive home or on your drive to school, you're spinning things through your head with stuff you want to do or stuff that could have gone better, or stuff you're going to do differently tomorrow. And at some point, you're probably trying to slow that down.
Yes.
What does that look like for you?
That's a good way of saying it. Like on the way home, the drive home, which can be which it always seems like my mind is really loud when I leave school,
Your mind is, mind being loud.
right?
Yep.
And it just seems very full. It's
Yes.
like people are like, my heart is so full, like, but
But your mind is like, blowing
no,
up.
my mind a lot feels heavy, and I'm it's not like a totally bad thing, but
No,
it just
it's
feels
at
full.
capacity.
It's full.
Yeah.
It's full. And so it feels like if it's a day or an afternoon or evening where we don't have activities back at school, it is good to have that brain drain.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, on the way home from school, I do choose to, I have a couple of radio programs I listen to. And then this time of year, a lot of times I listen to a podcast about the University of Kentucky basketball. So I do jump off the school train and immediately get into something else.
Did they win this weekend?
No, it
That-
was bad.
who'd they
lost
play?
Gonzaga.
Is Gonzaga ranked?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
Okay, Kentucky has lost 3 in a row at home. First time ever in that building. It was built in the 66,
Wow.
67
Wait,
school year. They've
first-
never lost 3 in a row in that building.
Oh.
Yeah, it's bad.
Give
So
your Kentucky
I have
friend
a
hug this week.
I have a radio show that is put on podcast like hours after it's broadcast, because it comes out in the morning, and so I can listen to it on the way home. So
Mhm.
there's some radio personalities that I enjoy listening to, and that's kind of like one of my jams, because it is totally different direction,
Okay.
right? And then also a lot of times on the way home, I'll call my wife and talk.
When you talk to her, okay.
But she's at work, so I'm like, I'm not. And I'm like, hey. So do that. Being in the car is a good time to talk on the phone. But then usually the next step would be walk with the dog.
Do you listen to something? You walk in silence?
Usually Kentucky Sports Radio.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll listen to our podcast just because I'd like to hear.
You're watching film. You're just
I'm,
yeah.
Well, it's interesting as a voice, like listen to myself talk.
Sure.
Since I'm interested in like what I sound like.
Do you want to give your future self a message right now while you're listening to this podcast on a walk?
Steve, get directly to the point. Don't circle the runway. Land the plane. Don't say well, yeah, or but.
Oh, that showed up in the classroom. Sorry, you're mid message. Sorry, that's funny.
Don't say that. Just
Well, Steve was on a roll today in class telling kids, because you were asking some scaffolded questions, and kids would raise their hand, and the first word out of their mouth was or but, right?
I said, try it again. Don't use the sound when you begin your sentence.
Mm-hmm. And they were successful.
They
It
were.
was cooking.
So it helped them take a breath. So I do that, listen to something. Then I'll just get through and then usually some kind of dinner preparation.
Mm-hmm. Because you like to cook.
I like to cook, and either we're doing leftovers or meal prep leftovers or whatever.
And Steve's meal prep game has been pretty strong lately.
And
He's got some nice lunches at school.
Some good color.
A lot of beans. You're like,
beans.
very healthy.
Shredded chicken lately.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, you had some colors with the peppers in there the other day. That was really good.
Thank you.
I had
Thank
lunch
you very
envy.
much. Yeah. So my life outside of school is quite a bit different than it was 6 years ago or 5 years ago when there were two teenage boys in the house. Yeah. And the activity schedule or the activity level that was going on, that was usually some kind of configuration of, private lessons, soccer, basketball, boys going to work,
working out,
and just, or providing the ride for that because not, the boys didn't always drive or have their own car. So they were on the go. So, during soccer season, you were going to 2-3 games a week, and then you would have marching band 2 or 3 nights a week. And so it was a lot. And so, then the family wasn't always together because we'd be going different directions. And so that's different now. That's different because now it's my wife and I and our dog Oliver. And if I sit still, like at 8 o'clock at night, and watch a show on TV, like I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
And I'm out. And I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want to just be work, come home, and I don't want to be that guy. So I do get bummed out sometimes that I feel like that. Because I'm like, I eat well, like I'm active, I drink a lot of water.
You're checking the health boxes.
I know,
like
and
you're
I'm
doing
like,
it.
why am
Well, and especially in our profession when we're like on our feet and moving all day.
So it's tough to, but there is a desire to be present. I think that's obviously always been there, like to the people in my home, whoever that would be. But maybe now that we're empty nesters, now that almost feels different just because there's not like that level of activity. If you're going down to Napanee, Indiana to a soccer game or to a basketball game, or you're going to a taekwondo tournament, or you're picking up your son after practice or taking them to a drum lesson, like it's just different because you're on the go, and it doesn't really matter if you're tired, you're just going.
That's true.
And then once you stop, then that's feel like when I get more tired is when I stop.
So let me ask you this, now you could answer this as present Steve or as like 5 years ago Steve, but are there times when you're just sitting at home, and this could be weekend or weeknight, whatever, where a thought intrudes saying like, hey, do you have this planned out for school tomorrow? Hey, did you make copies of this? Hey, did this kid turn in this assignment? Like, does that happen on a somewhat regular basis?
Yes.
So that when those thoughts fly in, what do you do?
If it's on Sunday, I'll usually do it.
Don't let the Sunday scaries in.
Don't let the Sunday scaries in.
Okay.
Although, table that thought.
Tabled.
Recently, well, I'm not going to say recently, like the weekday, I don't do homework at home.
Right.
I don't do schoolwork at home. I get here early, not as early as Heidi Snyder, but I get here early.
5:01.
And I use my prep, and I work after school. And so when I leave, a lot of times I leave all my materials here because I don't need to do that. And I, many times when I get emails from school-related things after hours, I don't reply to those. But
when those thoughts come in at home,
yes.
what do you do? What does that Steve do? You say, like, shut up to that thought?
Well, there's two schools of thought. Funny you should say this, Jack. Is because, the Sunday scaries are real.
Okay.
So last 2 Sundays, different movement towards the Sunday scaries. Last 8 days ago Sunday, I was feeling the Sunday scaries. It was like after church, had some lunch, came home, and I was like 2. It was a nice day. I knew we were going to go for a walk, and I was just kind of like, yep. And I just sat down at the kitchen table with my iPad and just like grinded for like 90 minutes on getting stuff done. Okay. And that felt better, but it was like this conditional kind of relief, a conditional non-anxiety, right? Steve feels better because Steve helped eliminate some of the concerns or, worries that he had,
Yes.
right? As opposed to, because my wife would say, well, what would feel good to do? And I'd be like, do the work. And she's like, well, no, like what else would feel good to do? Like, do you need to take a nap? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to go play with Oliver? Do you need to talk to somebody on the phone or listen to, what do you need to do? And so, which is interesting because it's not like, it's like a different approach. So fast forward to yesterday, I was kind of feeling that. And then my response was, in that same situation, I just got my AirPods and I took Oliver on a walk.
Okay.
So I chose action, but I didn't choose chipping things off the list to melt my anxiety away. I chose something on a different tangent.
Do you think it's kind of dangerous to get into that habit of the work at home?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, because then it's like you're putting conditions on your anxiety-free life. Once I get everything done, then I can relax. I'm usually that kind of guy, like
Yeah.
And so, but maybe that kind of keeps you from being present and kind of still and just kind of moving at a slower gear in a positive way. So yesterday was kind of the opposite of that. I went on a walk, for 30 minutes with Oliver, and I made some phone calls, while I was walking, but like some social calls, not work calls, and listened to Kentucky Sports Radio. And so trying to make, that was a very conscious choice not to make my anxiety cure was not like conditional.
Yeah.
It was just like living my life and then like learning how to like deal with that anxiety and not be like, I got to get this done. Now, when I came home and I think we were doing some other things around the house and I sat down and I had the pregame show of the Super Bowl on. Then I started looking at some things and I got some things that I felt like were time sensitive that I wanted to have prepared for Monday morning in classes and communications and, looking ahead to the week. I got some things done, but I don't want to be just like, I will be satisfied and peaceful once everything is done. That's fool.
That's
fool's gold.
Because it will never all be done, right?
And it's like you will not be happy unless your house is totally clean. Okay, well, who's going to live in it?
Right.
What's
well?
Nothing wrong with having a clean house, but like if that's like your source of joy, then that's like conditional.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, Frank Troika, master teacher, would say that every behavior is a skill.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And anxiety, maybe that's a behavior / emotion, but being calm is definitely a skill, I mean, you can get better at being calm, right? And some people, like listening right now, might say, well, Steve, that's great. That works for you, but that doesn't work for me. And I would challenge a listener right now who is feeling that to try building this skill. You're not going to come right off the gate and say, wow, I feel great listening to some music, walking, when I have a 10-page paper to write at home. Like, you're not going to feel great about that the first time.
No.
And don't expect to. But try building the skill for yourself in small steps.
Yes.
Right?
For
For example, if there is some big task you have to do, you can do a couple things to make yourself feel better. And be aware of the amount of time you're spending.
Okay.
Right? So one thing that I like to do is plan out how I'm going to complete tasks. And I like to see the list of the tasks I need to do. So if you have a plan, that can make you feel better. And a plan doesn't take a long time to create.
No.
And then take a couple minutes to do something different. Do go on that walk.
Mhm.
Don't take it for an hour, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then come back and then try and check off a little bit more. And then the next time you do it, 10 or 15 minutes. You know, you're building this skill. You can't start running before you can start it like a crawl and then a walk and then a jog.
Right.
And I remember like being like right out of college, like I did a lot on Sundays. Part of it was that I didn't know that like that wasn't a great thing for myself. Like
Okay.
I didn't really know, and I
Like
wasn't.
you did work.
I did prep like on Sunday. I
Okay.
used to like camp out at a coffee shop and do that. It was kind of like a cozy feeling, nice to
Yeah.
do. But then I was like, wait, why am I
Yeah.
doing this? I don't have to. But it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to kind of compartmentalize work and not work. And some people choose not to do that. And if that's you, that's you. But if you're listening and you're saying like, I would like to be better at home being home, work being work, try that. That might help. I'm not sure.
Right.
But don't expect things to be perfect right away when you try this.
No. And don't wait for things to be perfect to like relax at home. Right?
Because they'll never be perfect.
Because it'll never be perfect. I think some of the ways, like thinking back, since we are empty nesters now, but then also thinking about when there were small children around or medium-sized children or large children, like however that looked, and having a spouse at home was, or still is, trying to have a sense, still have a sense of like spontaneous fun or spontaneous connection. And so maybe like scheduling those things, and like just as an example, I was just thinking about like this, like I'm kind of a traditional guy. Like I like repetition, and I like things to look forward to, right? And so like for like a long time with the boys, I don't know how we got it started, but we did like donut days.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
like Donut Friday. And we're like, we live right down the street from Dunkin' Donuts, but actually when it started, it was across town. But we started this thing, and then like, I don't know, like 3 times a semester or something like that. Just when we thought things were a little want, we'd be like on a Thursday night, I was like, boys, you want to go out for donuts tomorrow morning, you know? So like just having these kind of like celebrations kind of, you know, built in and kind of spontaneous fun, right?
Sure.
And getting up a little bit early, but then also we kind of had like a tradition of always posting those on Instagram, like donut day,
I've seen those.
right? And
They're-
you know,
everyone's
there's like,
smiling.
there's like a ton of those, and it's fun to go back through those with the boys and kind of do that. And you know, and there was always kind of a sense of tradition and like fun of doing that and like bringing up memories, right?
Nice.
You know, and I think that, you know, it seems like a far way away, like imagining the boys being younger, like little kids, like 5 and 9 or 5 and 8, like that seems like a long time ago. But just like having like built in fun that you were locked into, whether it was, I mean, there was a lot of wrestling in our house that was going on, but I just remember like nights of like wrestling, nights of playing Madden football, nights of having snowball fights, or nights of using the iPad to make home movies, and just like like constantly doing stupid stuff, just like that, just the fun that was made out of that, those things that you look forward to. And even though I think that when there was more activity, it did seem like my fatigue level was less.
Do you remember in those moments like feeling guilty about not doing work things, or like worrying about shoving work aside?
I did work. I mean, there were still times I got anxious or worried about things.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Was it easier to shove aside?
It wasn't guilty. I didn't feel guilty.
Okay.
Didn't feel guilty, and there were. No, that was a good question. I didn't feel guilty about it, and it wasn't always easy to shove aside. And then, I can remember there were times like the first time I taught AP Music Theory, like I was thick into it, and I was like, oh, good Lord, what am I doing? Like I really needed to do more like prep, like understanding what was going on and where we're going. I can remember times like that. But then also because it was like spun, the boys were also doing schoolwork.
Okay.
So there's that.
Like they're doing their own homework.
They're doing their own homework,
so
too.
You can do homework with Dad.
Right.
Dad's looking at plagal cadences.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then they're doing their stuff, but there was always that sense
tables.
what do you say?
Multiplication tables?
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. And science fair projects and all that kind of stuff. So,
cool. Okay.
But I also remember, like, really early on, like, when I first started working at Concord, I felt, like, compelled to stay late.
Why is that, Steve?
Because the people I worked around.
Because he got paid hourly. Oh.
Because I got paid. Ching ching.
Because the people you worked with stayed late.
Yes. And I thought that was it. I thought that's what you did. And then I remember talking to a friend, and the friend was like, maybe you can just like declare like which days you're going to be home by this time, so Kathy's not wondering what's going on, and you're not just like running each day, all the way to the end until you're out of gas, And I totally remember that. Like,
so you felt pressured or like peer pressure?
Well, I think it was this kind of like if I said, Jack, you got to stay in your office and you got to work until 9, you would find things to work on.
I could find things to work on. I would question our relationship if you're telling me I need to stay till 9 p.m.
No, but I'm just saying, like, you would find.
Oh, there's stuff to do. Sure,
that's what I mean. Like,
okay.
I mean, you would arrange things, or you would like plan.
Yeah. There's
2 months ahead or whatever, and
sure.
tweak this grade system or whatever you're doing, right?
There would become some diminishing returns, right?
But so I just thought maybe like that's what you did. And then it was like you left when everything was like tidy and like tied up and ready to go. And I was like, no, that stuff.
I think there's something my generation has gotten pretty good at, and that is working efficiently. And my generation,
they have gotten good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think part of that is like with technology and like creating ways to like grind things out. Like there's a ton of stuff on YouTube on like how to be efficient now, and like my generation's like totally into that stuff and like how to do that.
Right.
But I think that's something that the younger generation of like employees are working toward and understanding better, is how to work efficiently. And especially in a career like ours where we have only a given amount of prep time a day, that we have to use that like very well. And it's really easy to get caught up in doing something that is not worth your time, or doing it poorly because you're not using your time or your focus or whatever. But those X amount of minutes that you get every day, that's a big part, I think, of the work-life balance is using your prep time correctly and efficiently. So I would like to speak to that because I've found some things that like have helped me, and this is, again, it's my work, but it helps my home by doing this well. But I've spoken about my love for Google Keep, that I have that up all the time. If there's something at home that nags me, the way I relieve that is putting it in keep.
Yeah.
And that takes 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I don't mind doing that because it's 10 seconds and it helps future Jack, but it also helps present Jack be in the now right after that's done. And present Jack knows that future Jack will have a reminder on Monday morning. So I have those things listed out. And when I sit it down at my desk for my prep period, the first thing up is that tab and I can see what I need to do. And my consistency of that is strong. And that helps take care of home Jack because home Jack trusts work Jack's consistency in keeping everything on keep.
Gotcha.
And that the track record there, if everything's there, I'm okay.
So if you're at home, though, and you're something comes to mind about work or school, then do you get out your phone and put it in keep?
If I know it's not in there, I'm like, oh, I should do this. I probably will.
Okay.
It's like sending a text.
Sure.
You know? And there's like a rule I read somewhere that, not a rule, a suggestion, that if it takes less than 5 minutes, just do it. The entire task does. I don't always do that for school stuff at home, like 5 minutes, but if it's like a thought to help me stay organized, I'll just do it. I'll take care of it then because it's so easy and it makes me feel better and it's painless, like it's 10 seconds or less, you know? So that helps me. Another thing that has helped me with work versus home is running.
Yeah, just remember you talked about that in the last episode, and you kind of got into that during the pandemic.
Dude, I used to think runners are so weird, and now I am one.
You're weird.
I'm weird, dude.
You're weird.
I'm not. I'm weird. I like love the feeling of like runner's high. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
It's not what I thought it was, but it's like 15 or 20 minutes after I'm done, I am in like this most like zen state where I can just like sit down and everything feels calm. Like my body feels like so relaxed and I just am like, I'm vibing. Okay. It's like such a good feeling. And obviously I'm not saying everyone should like do that, but that's something that's worked for me where it just like gives me like an instant calm that the psychology of things too feel differently. Like if school thoughts come into my mind, it's not met like with anxiety. It's not met with like annoyance. It's just like, okay. And that's really helped me. And it helps the like post school, like sometimes you're talking about your mind being loud. It's kind of like a shower for your mind. And sometimes, most of the time I'll listen to a podcast or something. But for the first time in a long time, last week, maybe I was going to tell you this. I don't think I did. I ran in silence.
How'd that go?
It was good. It was good. But I had the same thing that you were talking about. Like everything just felt like so loud in my mind. And the other thing about teaching music that they didn't tell you in college is that you're going to listen to music all day. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds obvious, but there are constant sounds just barraging you.
Audio stimulation.
All the time. And sometimes I just need silence. Like I ride home in silence. I never listen to music in the car on the way home because I just need like those 20 minutes. And that run, that was like a very like I could just think and think all the thoughts out.
Right.
And then it was done and it was good.
So you have that ritual of running.
I do.
And that is a way that you still the snow globe and the way that you still your body, and that helps curb your appetite for more doses of anxiety, more helpings of anxiety.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah. That is something that helps me, and it just makes the rest of my evening pretty calm. It does take time. That's like the biggest bummer is that like you got to build in time for that, but it's time that I get back.
It's time well spent.
Time well spent. Yeah. So that's something else, and you and I both have our stuff we like to do at home, whether that's music or not, and cooking. I mean, that's like
sure.
I love cooking food, and that's another big one. And then one that my dad has talked to me about, shout out Dad, because he's probably listening to this, but is something he calls flow.
Okay.
Like getting into flow of something where you can do things where you lose track of time because you're really invested in that and finding things that you can do.
I know what it is for you. It's playing guitar.
It is playing guitar. Did I tell you that? You just know. just know me
You
so
said no. You said that you can. Yeah, you can lose track of time.
I lose track of time.
Right.
Throw on jam tracks.
You lose track
get
of time worse than a 7th grade drummer.
Dang. What's the one like? They gave a musician was bad, so they gave him 2 sticks, and then they called him a drummer, and then they took one away and they called him a conductor. Classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you play guitar, then you kind of lose track of life for a while.
I lose track of life. I just like playing, and I will sit in that room for a long time and trying to hit some chord changes and make that stuff happen. But that's something where you can get away. If you lose track of time, like you're kind of away. You know what I mean? And that can help get away if you need to.
For sure.
Away, right. Do you have stuff like that?
I do. It's probably not in the flow. Because my piano at home's out of tune. Classic.
You don't have a keyboard?
No, I do.
You do have a keyboard?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't like how it feels.
Fair enough.
It's kind of clunky.
Yeah.
But I get up earlier than I would need to if I just got ready and left.
Yeah, you do your morning.
I do get up extra early, and I do have an extended period of quiet time. Like I always do my breakfast, always do the coffee, light a candle, got the ritual with the dog, getting him outside and back inside. But then I happen to read scripture every day, and then I do some reflections on that, like some video reflections. And then also I have a journal that I write in every day. And then I usually have a book, some kind of spiritual book that I'm working through. And then I try to spend a certain amount of time in complete silence. And then sometimes I do work through some kind of like meditative, repetitive prayers that help me. But the silence and the stillness, stillness, solitude, silence. Like being alone.
3 S's.
Yeah. Stillness, solitude, and silence. Like being alone, right? With just a candlelight and just like sitting at the kitchen table. Sometimes Oliver's at my feet and sometimes not. But just, I'm not the person that is like usually short of saying things. Like I'm verbal. You know, there's a lot we just mentioned, listening to a lot of things. But having that time in the morning and like extended time of just being completely quiet is good. You know, like to be able to hear nothing or just focus on your senses or just be totally silent is good. And I've been in that ritual for, you know, a long time, and that's just the way it goes. You know, if it's a band day, like we have marching band rehearsal, we're meeting at 5 a.m. I'm still backing it up, so that always starts like that, you know, and that feels good. And that's, and I think I've said this before with some professional development, like, when we've talked about to other teachers or other staff members, like, well, you need to talk to every student every day. Oh, I just don't have time for that. I'm just not that social. I'm just not that, you know, witty, or I'm not just that comfortable talking to people. Well, spoiler alert, I'm not the still guy. Okay. I'm not the still guy. I'm kind of fidgety. I'm a little anxious, and I'm verbal, and I like to be with people. So it's a stretch for me to be still and quiet. And so that is a skill.
Full circle.
There we go. Working on that. And that always goes off.
5 o'clock.
Oh, it is 5 o'clock. It's so quiet. Now we should just like sit here, set the timer, and just like sit here in silence with our podcast audience.
They probably just think our audio cut out. Okay.
They're like, you guys are whack.
amateurs.
Okay. So I mean, that's a skill that
Sure.
or a behavior. Yeah, I have to work on.
And you're
to-
choosing to work
I'm
on
choosing to work on it, and
'cause
maybe
you like doing that.
right.
And
I
it
see.
makes you more efficient, more
I
present.
see the benefits of it,
Sure.
at many different levels in my life, like, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, creativity wise, and just, thinking about certain things. So that is good. Like the silence, the controlled silence or the intended silence is good.
A note to, like, I do not profess to have this mastered, work versus home.
Okay.
I'm imagining Steve doesn't either. And I'm trying to, like, put myself in a listener's shoes, like someone telling me, like, what I should, like, here's some things that could work for you. And I remember, like, 2020, that stuff was going on all the time, like teacher self-care.
Yeah.
And I do not want that to
No.
want it to be this.
No.
And maybe, like, in like sharing some maybe sympathy or empathy, I with one of the classes I've taught in the last 2 years, or maybe 3 years we've been doing this. We take the Myers-Briggs,
Okay.
and I've always come up as an E, like extrovert. And for the first time when I took the test, I became an I this year.
You can change.
Apparently,
Apparently.
I became an introvert this year. And one of the things that, well, the truth to that is, like, how do you recharge? Do you recharge with people or do you recharge on your own? I feel like a lot of times I, like, kind of spend my social battery at school.
Yes.
And I feel like by the time, I mean, even right now, like, I can feel the battery going, boom,
Yep.
and I need that recharge. And so that's, like, something that I notice is, like, that is hard, is, like, you can spend your battery at school.
Yes.
Depending on who you are, and that's like one thing I noticed too. So
Yep.
if I'm with you. I'm with you.
And again, I'll just double what you said, is that it doesn't feel like it's, like, figured out, and it's something that still, like, the work and the home balance, that it is still a process. It's still, like, working on it. And maybe I noticed different things than I did 10, 20, 30 years ago, but and I'm working on certain, character traits or certain, aspects of my own personal life, and then also trying to pay attention to people, in my life, like my family and friends and people away from my school community, trying to pay attention. And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it doesn't.
That's true.
And but I would definitely say there's, different seasons of that life.
Yes.
Right.
And then going with that, and then we will say goodbye to our listeners. When we perform, and we are musicians, and Steve and I, when we are performing with the school bands, we don't really do much. I mean, we wave our arms, but
Nope.
we're not playing an instrument. But when we have played instruments and performed, we get nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing this for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we perform, I'm imagining, do you still get nervous when you perform? Like when you play?
Depends what.
Okay, fair enough.
So, like playing piano at church, now I don't.
But when you played saxophone at Jazz Festival?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got nervous
Sure.
playing trumpet.
Sure. I was, like, totally looking at myself,
Yeah,
like,
you're
what
like,
are you doing,
am I
dude?
doing?
Like, what
Are
who
we
is
playing
this?
What key are we in?
fraud?
Yeah. And when I play my little singer-songwriter gigs, I still get nervous. But the nerves on these kind of situations, they don't really go away after all the years. You just get better at performing with them.
Yes. That's good.
I think that's like an Eric Whitacre quote.
Wow.
I think he said that, like, you just get, the nerves don't go away. You just get used to
You get performing with them.
Yeah.
I like it.
And I think that kind of goes along with what we're talking about right now. Like, maybe the work you're always thinking about, or you're always going to have that, maybe to a lesser degree if you work at it, but you get better at living your life with that feeling, and you can say hi to it in the back of your head. You can bring it in, you can push it away, you can do what you need to with it. But I don't feel like saying it's so you're going to be able to shut out work when you're at home. I don't know if that's the truth for some people.
No.
But being able to develop that skill.
Right. Well, and we could like double this episode, right? You know.
Let's do. Just kidding.
I don't have time. But there's also, the idea of like, okay, when I go home, I'm not going to think about work. Okay, well, good luck with that. Okay, don't think about. Try this at home right now. Don't think about pink elephants. Okay, don't think about pink elephants. It's just like.
What are you thinking about? Isn't that from Inception? Is that what that's from?
I think it is.
Yeah, I just thought that too.
It's,
okay.
But it's hard. But I think it is maybe the bottom line, the exit ticket for this episode is that it will help all of us, including you, the listener, but us, Jack and Steve, having some movement towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And the movement within ritual, in being in what's the word I'm thinking of, being intentional about your movement away from school and away from work, about thinking some activities that are cleansing or exhilarating or resting, or you're building up a skill, or being present to your kids or to your spouse or to your dog.
Real.
Right?
So if you have thoughts, which we know you do because we have really smart listeners, we would love to hear them and how you spend your time or how you think about trying to compartmentalize your work versus your home, and share those thoughts via YouTube comments, Apple Podcast comments. You can email. Actually, we've gotten a lot of emails from our listeners. That's like kind of their choice method. But we would love to hear your thoughts, your hot takes, what you do well, what you'd think differently. We'll be there. We'll read them.
And then
we'll probably write you back.
Let's see.
Are you looking for our next guest?
Yeah. Our next guest is in 2 weeks. Because next week,
2 weeks from
have
when this episode airs?
Well, no, 2 weeks from today we're going to record.
So they'll hear it. Okay. They'll hear it in 2 weeks.
Okay. So, but then we have to figure out if we're going to record next week on Monday. It's President's Day. We could just do it on. Let's do it on Tuesday.
Okay.
No,
because you got sectionals.
I have sectionals. Maybe we should do an early morning one.
I don't work in this building. You'd have to do it. We could do it at the junior high, but you'd have to get there at like 6:30. He's up by then. He's lit his candle. He's sitting in silence. He's not doing anything.
Okay, well,
we'll do it during band.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for hanging with us, and thanks for all your support out there. So for Steve Peterson
and Jack Hinkle,
we're out of here.